If Diablo and Ultima Online got drunk and hooked up one night using zero contraception, their child would be called VRising. It's a game that is just as addicting as the two games it draws inspiration from, and one that I had an enjoyable time playing. The world of VRising is extremely beautiful, and it's a fun place to explore and fight in. With so much to see and do, this game will have you hooked for hours on end. VRising is as much a survival game as it is a hack and slash, much like the beloved Diablo series. It takes direction from games like Ultima Online and mixes them into a 3D overhead action-adventure RPG that can be played as a single-player experience, but it's best played with others. The game divides the action between different servers. For the purposes of this review, I was playing on a PvE server because, well, I suck at PvP, and being so new to the game, I figured it was the best opportunity to experience it. At its core, the game is an overhead action-adventure RPG with heavy building and crafting elements that rewards exploration, grinding, and the efficient use of resources. You play as a vampire who is trying to bring the vampire lineage back to glory after the humans took over. That being said, you are vulnerable to things like silver and sunlight, being a vampire after all, and it's one of the most challenging aspects of the game. VRising features a day and night cycle that weakens your vampire during the day cycle and allows them to roam around free from the effects of the blistering sun during the night. But you aren't totally vulnerable during the day. If you stick to the shadows cast by the game's beautiful trees and stone outcroppings, you will not take damage. But you can forget about fighting effectively during the day because the sun is always against you. I know why the developers implemented this game mechanic, but it really breaks up the flow of the combat and especially the mission in VRising. There were times that I slept in my coffin or just logged off entirely because the damn sun rose and I was too weak to do anything fun. Other times, I took the opportunity to gather resources that the game demands so you can build some things. There are a variety of resources you need to farm to successfully build your humble abode, including wood, stone, bones, fabric, and ore. But the game doesn't tell you what you need, for example, to process leather. You are just kind of left in the dark to figure it out on your own. For example, in order to upgrade your castle heart, you need some leather. In order to get leather, you must collect hides and have a tannery at your base so you can turn the hides into leather. But the game doesn't tell you that the tannery recipe is unlocked only after beating a certain boss who is a beast within her own right. I was only able to take her out with the help of another player who just happened to be on the same mission I was on. It took us a while to beat her down and draw her blood so that we could get the right recipe for the tannery. The game's missions, at least at first, consist of you learning the basic moves and crafting the basic weapons. The missions progress to you building a full-on castle by collecting the right resources, many of them requiring you to take out a special boss or gather a specific resource. It's deeply involved and interconnects almost everything you do in the game. Let's talk about the game's controls. Anyone who is used to playing games using a keyboard and mouse will feel right at home, but players who usually game on a controller are going to struggle. There were many times that I died during a battle because I pushed the wrong button, and even though I know my way around a keyboard, I am not proficient enough to push the right buttons during the heat of the moment. I know what you're thinking. Get good, noob. But did I mention I actually touch type really well? The more I played though, the better I became at pressing the right buttons. The control scheme is not a deal breaker though, and with the game in early access, hopefully the developers will add controller support. The game's combat is difficult but rewarding at the same time. One of the most challenging parts of the combat is the healing. You basically have two ways of healing, both require you not to take any damage or the healing stops. The first is by using your Blood Mend ability. Blood Mend only works if you have blood in your bank. Contrary to popular game design, the big red orb that sits in the bottom middle of the screen isn't your health, it's your blood bank. It took me a while to figure that out. Your actual HP is a small bar that sits above your hotkey bar and is reliant on your blood bank. So to heal, you first need some blood in your blood bank. Then you need to find a nice quiet place where no monsters can get to you to turn on your Blood Mend ability and wait a couple of moments for your HP to fill up. The other way to heal is to craft certain items in the game, such as a vermin slave, a dish made out of rat that will allow you to heal on the fly. You can fill your blood bank by feeding off of near dead enemies or collecting rats or hearts that you can eat to fill up your blood. But you have to be careful about what types of blood you consume, for each of the 7 blood types in the game boosts your stats. You start out with a frail blood type in your blood bank. If you feed on a monster or human enemy, your blood type switches to that creature or enemy, which can grant you stats such as a faster movement speed, increased sun resistance, or damage reduction. The brute blood type grants you a life leech and several other benefits. You get the idea. Each blood type has different tiers that grant you specific perks. The higher the tier, the better the perk. You can reach these different tiers by feasting on creatures with higher blood quality. The enemies in this game can be extremely difficult to take out without help, and that's why it's a lot more fun playing the game with a few friends to assist in the kills. The boss characters, such as the one I'm fighting here, grant you special powers or unlock special recipes that you can use to build new stuff. One of the most frustrating aspects of the boss fights is that if you disengage with the boss and run off the screen for even a moment, the boss returns to where you first encountered it and respawns all of its health. This means that you have to take the boss out strategically, have the highest damage weapon equipped, a full blood bank, fight at night, and pelt them with your spells to get the upper hand. The other frustrating thing about the bosses is that most of them spawn minions when they are getting beat. This is supremely frustrating if you are trying to solo a boss and you can easily get killed due to the spawns. It's not really an issue if you are playing with others, as one player can stay on the boss and the others can take out the spawns. Needless to say, there is a lot to do in the boss fights and they are not for the faint of heart. But if you manage to beat one of the bosses on your own, you feel like the king of the world. I should mention that the boss fights are not impossible with the right build, and there were times that I kept getting my ass handed to me, but then returned with a better weapon and beat the boss down in no time. Let's now talk about the graphics and sound. They are both excellent and really fit the moody world that VRising is trying to create. The game's graphics and sounds both earn high marks and add to the overall production value of the game. The shading and lighting effects rendered in the game give it a sense of realism. One of the most enjoyable aspects of the game is its building mechanics, especially when you have the required resources. The game reminded me quite a bit of Ultima Online, however, everything is a lot more customizable in VRising. It's pretty cool being able to build a home from the ground up using the game's many resources. On PvP servers, the game allows you to plunder the castles of your enemies. I guess I'm glad I stayed on the PvE servers because I would have been pissed if someone would have messed up my home. Overall, VRising strikes the right balance between action RPG and building sim, and one that I think most gamers will find enjoyable. Especially if you play on a server with a lot of people, because when you die, you can only resurrect if a fellow player comes by and reses you, or if you hit X to end your own life and respawn at the respawn point to the game. If you off yourself without waiting for another player to res you, you must backtrack to the spot where you died and attempt to get your stuff back. Although the server I played on was relatively full, no one ever resed me and I had to backtrack each time I died. This may be because the game is in early access and doesn't quite yet have the player base. Let's hope that more players jump on board because this is a fun game and it could be the next big thing. If you enjoyed my review of this game, please drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, and give the video a thumbs up.